Hello and welcome to A Tribe Called Cars. My name is Ben Griffin and today we're driving the brand new, all new Nissan Juke. Now this is an important car for Nissan, and it's also a car that has always divided opinion. It's been incredibly popular. I think more than 1.5 million have been sold worldwide. However, it is very love or hate. It is one of the original compact crossovers, and there's certainly no denying that it has a unique aesthetic. By unique, I of course mean ugly, but at least it stands out and the new design is much nicer. Plus you still get those lovely round headlights. Now my opinion of the car before this is a bit of a mixed bag, because I didn't really like the Nismo version. I thought it was a bit rubbish, if I'm honest. But then I went in the Juke R, which is the one with the GTR engine, and that was ballistic and very, very fun. This thing, the new version, sits somewhere in between the two. So the biggest change to the range is there's just one engine. It's a 117 PS, 1 litre, 3-cylinder with a turbo. So yes, there's no diesel and there's no EV hybrid either, but the platform this car is based on now, the CMF-B, is the one used by the Renault Captur as well, which does have some electrification. So what that means is that this is probably going to get some sort of hybrid-y thing at some point in the future, but not yet. Now I'll be honest, having a 1 litre in a car that isn't exactly small, in fact it's a little bit longer and wider I believe, although 23 kilograms lighter, yeah, a little bit nervous, because it's not great to have a car that feels gutless, and the Qashqai 1 litre was just a little bit gutless, to be fair. However, the good news is that you get pretty much all torque, which is 180 Newton meters, from 1750 RPM. So that means it's fairly linear delivery. It's not hugely exciting, 0 to 62 in I think 10.2 seconds, but it does have enough go to make normal use bearable. It isn't particularly brilliant. It's not going to set your hair on fire, but it is enough that you can do things safely. You can overtake safely. You can pull out of the roundabout safely, which is really all you can ask for. It is, after all, a 3-cylinder and not the engine from a GTR, but then it does have a trick up its sleeve. There's actually a sort of overboost torque function that kicks in, so you can actually have as much as 200 Newton meters, but it is temporary. As you might be able to hear, it is pretty damn quiet. However, there is wind noise. Nissan says that it's a pre-production car. This shouldn't be a problem in the one you actually buy. Now, of course, whether that's true or not remains to be seen. All I can talk about is what it's like in this one. But you can definitely hear some wind noise coming through the window, which sort of ruins the otherwise quiet experience. The suspension is really, really good. On these roads, okay, they're pretty smooth, but actually it's been comfortable throughout the last few hours of driving, and it's also just firm enough that you can chuck it into a corner and it holds well. It's predictable. It's actually fairly enjoyable to drive in sport mode. The steering is really quite beefy and heavy. It inspires a little bit of confidence, and it's quite fun to push it hard. Of course, you're not going to be going very fast, as I said earlier, but you know, it's nice that something handles kind of well. Dare I say it, the handling is good enough that I would actually like a Nismo version. Well, in theory. Now you're probably hearing this constant bleeping and working out how to turn off the detection system if there's an obstacle coming at you, whatever. Yeah, it's annoying. I would turn that off straight away because it's very sensitive and it's always upset about something. It's really not especially great. Of course, if you do turn it off, remember to keep your eyes on the road and not on that attractive pedestrian, you perv. Now there's only two options for the transmission. There's a 6-speed manual, which is standard, and that's pretty decent. And then there's the 7-speed dual clutch, which I'm in now. It has paddles. I have no idea why you would ever use them, but the full manual mode stays manual. So if you want to do it, then that's great. It will allow you to shift up and down, be a little bit more involved. But actually, even in the normal driving mode, it is very chill. It changes gear nicely, it doesn't hesitate too much. However, the most pleasing of the modes is the sport mode, because it just holds the revs a little bit higher. It makes the car feel more eager, so it undoes some of that lethargic feeling you have from the 1 litre. So I would recommend that. Of course, it means your fuel economy suffers, but to be fair, if you're not a fast driver, it's not really an issue anyway. Speaking of driving modes, there is a new one called D mode, and basically what this does, in addition to the other 3, is it swaps between them all. So instead of you having to manually do it yourself between eco, normal and sport, it will work out based on how heavy your foot is and adjust accordingly, which is nice, because you sometimes, yeah, fine, you want to hang about in sport mode, but there might be times where you do a bit of fast driving and then slow, and as opposed to having to faff with it yourself, it will basically do it all for you, and that's pretty decent. The build quality is definitely a step up from the last car, and in fact the price hasn't really changed, so that's a good thing. And as you will hopefully be able to see, you've got some nice colour in here, you've got more soft materials, you can actually spec to have quite a lot of leather in here, and even Alcantara, which I find lovely. It's a bit old school in some ways, but it's nice. You still have some less interesting and nice plastics, but ultimately it feels more plush, feels a little bit more premium, and it still looks funky. It's got the sort of jet engine vents, and the infotainment display here looks nice. It's all pretty cool, I have to say. And this car was always being about having a sort of funky edge to it, and they've definitely maintained that. I think the outside is still quirky, it's a little less fussy, and actually, if you look at this compared with the old one, you can definitely see that it was starting to get a little dated, even after, what, 9 or so years. It did very well, don't get me wrong, but this one is definitely a lot fresher. It was due an upgrade, and Nissan has done a great job, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure "was being" is grammatically correct, but I will say Nissan was right to increase the interior space, giving you more head and legroom. There's also quite a bit of tech on here: Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, as opposed to just one as you had originally in the new Micro, which is good because obviously not everyone uses iPhone or whatever. You've got a good amount of safety systems as well to keep you safe, including the blind spot detection, and it will actually steer against you if you decide to ignore what's in your blind spot. It will try and counter that, so you don't really do as much damage, or any damage, hopefully. The seats are really comfy, actually quite sporty, a little bit sticky in this heat. It's quite warm in Barcelona, but not the end of the world. Just crank up the aircon. You've also got the Bose speakers in the headrest, another thing that you had in the new Micro, and we were playing it earlier, some music. It sounds good. It's bassy, good level of treble. It's a nice system. I think actually that in a car that isn't especially performance focused, it's probably nice to make up for that with some decent tech, and so I'd probably spec that personally. I have to say the automatic is really, really good actually. It's very, very smooth. It is very happy to get on with life without actually interfering at all. You barely hear it. Particularly the downshifts, that's where a lot of cars sort of struggle, but you don't even know it's really doing it. I think having the extra involvement of the manual is a good thing. Again, that would probably help give the car just a little bit more soul perhaps, but I think the main point is that the new Juke is definitely superior to the old one. It rides better, it is a lot smoother, it is quieter, the engine is actually pretty decent, it is more efficient if you want it to be. The CO2 emissions, of course, are I think around 26% lower. So in terms of tax, that's also a win as well. And of course everything is going that way. Small engine, big turbo, we've seen it for a while. It is the way for manufacturers to reduce their CO2 output. But I think in a car this size, it's more bearable for that to happen. More bearable, that is, until all the turbo usage means it seizes up and you have a large repair bill, which has been the case with comparative engines. What I'm trying to say is that I don't really feel like I'm missing a diesel or a bigger petrol at all. It is fit for purpose. However though, I would have loved to have seen a full EV, and I do hope that is something that comes along. Equally though, for the petrol head inside me, I'd like a Nismo version. It's just a little bit more beefed up, a little bit funkier outside, and a bit more power from the engine, or perhaps a slightly bigger 1.6 or something. Because I think with the way the chassis feels, and the neutral handling, and the suspension, even as it is, it would be really quite fun. I've enjoyed driving this. It feels adult, but at the same time it's still quite chuckable. You can be quite silly with it. I mean, some of these roads here, we were blitzing along and they are not very straight at all, but this thing, it's chuck, goes. C'est la vie. Let's be honest, Nissan has done a good job with the old Juke, but it's not perfect. The infotainment system itself is supposedly the best Nissan has done, and that's true. Is it the best I've used? No. It's okay. It's a little bit fuddly, and already it doesn't look especially fresh, shall we say. But the navigation is pretty decent. It's a clear display. It doesn't seem too reflective in the light we've had today, so you can see it. Big enough to see if your eyes are failing, and to be fair, for some Nissan people, they're not going to be the youngest. Yeah, fuddly isn't the word. But what is worth fiddling with is the connectivity, which now includes Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. On the new Micra, it was just the one. The switchgear itself, all the handles, the plastics, the buttons, it's all pretty decent. There's something down here that I managed to pull apart with really not too much effort, but otherwise it's sturdy, doesn't really creak, which is the main thing. That's probably the most annoying thing you can have in a low quality interior. But even on these hills here, they're quite steep, but it's still got the go to get up them, and it isn't underwhelming. I really did think that it was going to be too little power, but the reality is it's palatable, definitely. It's definitely palatable. So would I buy the new Nissan Juke? Well, I feel like it's a car I'm going to need a bit more time in, but combination of the better tech, the better ride, the more efficient engine. But yeah, I think Nissan has done enough to jazz the car up, but without ruining the price point. It starts from, I think, 17,400, and a Premier Edition, or the Techno Plus, which is the sort of daddy of the range, there, I think 23, 24, 500, something like that, which isn't big money at all. And of course you can probably add other stuff, you know, your Alcantara, and jazz it up even more, but it's still a pretty practical car, decently sized car as well, for not huge money. But yeah, first impressions, new Juke, it's good. It's a good car. I would be quite happy owning one. I think in its segment it's definitely matured enough to keep it relevant. Maybe even the class leader, we'll see. But I think if you're contemplating upgrading, there's definitely enough here to make it worth it. And if you're coming from its rivals, for instance, then this should feel pretty damn good to you, I'll say that. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. This has been A Tribe Called Cars. If you enjoyed the video, found it useful, please subscribe, give it a like, all that kind of jazz. And of course, if you have a question about the car, or if you want to know anything particular about the launch, whatever you want to know, or maybe something about my job, my career in motoring journalism and all that, then feel free to ask. It's always nice to have a chat with you guys in the comments. Take care, bye.